Sometime in a state house of assembly, I came across this argument which was about the case of a man who desires money, he needs money, and he really has this dire need for money, and he was presented 2 million naira. It takes divine intervention for that man to resist that money. However the money is coming, whether it is real or illegal. That is the extent to which corruption has eaten into the fabrics of the entire society called Nigeria. And since the coming on board of this administration precisely on May 29, 2015, so much has been done about it. And Mr. President has said, if we don't fight corruption, corruption will consume us. The fight has been on. It is visible that despite the steps taken by the federal government, despite the steps taken by the various agencies of government, regulatory agencies, enforcement agencies, corruption is fighting back from all fronts. To add strength to what government is doing, recently the president signed the Executive Order 6, which is precisely looking at reinforcing the fight against corruption in Nigeria. What is the implication of that Executive Order 6? Some have lauded it, some have condemned it. Those who laud it say it will go a long way to expose and really recover most of the loots taken away by public officers who served at the time they served. Some are saying it will be an affront to the rights and privileges of Nigerians. So what is the implication of Executive Order 6 as signed by Mr. President, President Muhammadu Buhari? I have the Special Assistant to the President on Financial Crimes, Abiodun Ayodeji Aikomo. Okay, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, let's give it some implicit analysis now, or explanation.
Okay.
In a few words, what really is the implication of this Executive Order 6?
The Executive Order number 6 on the preservation of assets connected with corruption is to change the strategy for implementing the anti-corruption policy of the government. By change of strategy, I mean it's not in doubt that the government is corrupted. Is committed to the fight against corruption. And so far, the administration of President Buhari has been in government now for 3 years. So it is a good time to review what has been achieved vis-a-vis the objectives of the government. So in reviewing what has been achieved, especially in the fight against corruption, the president felt the need to coordinate the implementation of the anti-corruption war through the Office of the Attorney General. And that is the long and short of the regulation number 6. I'm aware that a lot has been said about the regulation, sometimes by people who have not even read it, because I've seen a lot of comments, things that are not in the order, people read it into it. Just to change the narrative. But we have to continuously engage the people to tell them what the executive order is meant to achieve.
And that's part of the engagement we are doing now, okay. Because, believe it, Nigeria is large, and a lot of advocacy need to be made about this Executive Order 6, because right now they have given it a lot of coloration. The bad, the good, the ugly. Now, for the people, that's why I ask you, what is the implication of this? Because some are saying, oh, this has come to lock us like slaves, this autocracy, all that. So that's why I say, can we have a breakdown of it?
If I may ask, have you read the order yourself?
I've tried to read myself.
Okay.
So now we are here, you and I.
No, I just so that we'll be on the same page.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to be sure that you have read it.
Very well, yeah.
Okay. The order is directed to regulatory agencies, which
e.g.
EFCC, ICPC, Standard Organization of Nigeria. About 20 organizations that are listed in the schedule to the order, directed to them to ensure that in respect of any investigation or criminal litigation bordering on corruption, the assets of those involved should be protected from dissipation, so that the hands of justice is not destroyed, so that the people involved in those cases do not have opportunity to corrupt the investigation process or the judicial process. That is what the order is all about. And if you read the order in section 2, it guarantees the right of the court to adjudicate on issues which anybody may have with respect to the order. So the idea that the order has come to lock people down, it is autocratic, it is dictatorial, does not even arise at all. Because how does the government work? We have the lawmakers who make laws. We have the judges who interpret laws. And we have the executive whose role it is to implement laws. Now, all these powers are derived from the Constitution. So the Constitution has clearly spelled out the responsibilities of each organ of government. So executive powers is vested in the person of the president. And that power is exercisable by the president, by the vice president, by cabinet ministers, and public officers. So the power that is vested in the president, who is the core of government, the executive is the core of government. How will the president see to the implementation of those laws? Through the web of corporations and entities under him. So corruption, like I said, is central to the policy of this government. And the president has now said, okay, with respect to the fight against corruption, this is the way, notwithstanding that you have laws regulating your activities, setting you up, giving you powers to do X, Y, Z with respect to freezing of assets. Now, this is the way henceforth it should be done. And if something is an order, by the word order, it is a command, it is a law, it must be obeyed. It is not a wishful thing that you can wish away.
You have sounded much more explicit than before now. Now, the fear from some quarters is this order is there to ensure anti-corruption onslaught is reinforced in the country. Now, the fear also is that are we not likely to in the course of implementation or enforcement, be faced with the problem of functional overlaps? Because the fear also is that there are already agencies on ground who are more or less supposed to have been doing this, yet there's an executive order. How do you contend this?
So, there can never be functional overlap. In the sense that, you know, people have argued, whether rightly or wrongly, that there is no coherence in some of the activities going on. Now, there are so many agencies dealing with anti-corruption. There can be corruption at the border, the custom is there. There can be corruption through drug smuggling, NDLEA is there. There can be economic crimes. There can be corruption through public service, ICPC is there. All these organizations have power to prosecute offenses related to the activities. And when they are prosecuting those offenses, they have power to go to court to freeze and attach assets, pending investigation, pending litigation. But because they are statutory organizations with, set up by laws of the National Assembly, so they are operating on, independently, because that is the nature. Because when an organization is set up, it has an act establishing it, so it's not taking instructions from anybody. Now, the president is the head of the executive, comprising all of them. So he has now given a policy direction as to how anti-corruption related cases, investigation, litigation should be handled. So there can never be overlap, because all enforcement authorities are supposed to be reporting to the Office of the Attorney General. The coordination of this order is through the Office of the Attorney General, who has set up a unit to see to the implementation of this. So many things have been developed as to how this policy will be implemented, how performance will be measured, how it will be evaluated from time to time.
Now, why should I now throw away the fear that this is not autocratic?
No.
There's this fear.
I still find it very difficult to understand what the fear is.
I'm playing it to you now.
No, because I can tell you that all this fear about the Executive Order 6 has been created by people who, by corrupt elements who are trying to taint this good policy of the government and give it the coloration of dictatorship. Because there is nothing dictatorial. Let me tell you, the constitution that we have, all the things that we talk about derive their legitimacy and authority and power from the constitution. Executive, legislature, judiciary. It is the constitution that is the foundation of everything. That constitution guarantees fundamental rights to fair hearing, to privacy, to association, to thought, conscience, and religion. Those rights are there in Chapter 4 of the Constitution. Nevertheless, in Section 45, the Constitution provides that, notwithstanding all these rights, nothing shall invalidate any law that is made in the interest of peace, good governance. So it means those rights are not absolute.
Okay.
The law recognizes that there is nothing like absolute rights.
Okay.
Because we live in community. Okay. We live among people. You say you have a right to talk, to say anything. But your right to talk does not extend to you saying what is not right about me.
Okay.
That is why there is the law of libel and slander. If you say you have the right to stretch your hand, it ends where my nose begins. So we have to understand the balancing nature of even the law. So what I'm trying to say is that Section 44(2)(k) of the Constitution provides that, notwithstanding the right to own immovable property, nothing shall invalidate a law that is made by the National Assembly permitting temporary restraint of dealings in such property. So what the president has done, the president has executive powers, like I said, under Section 5. Section 15 of the Constitution provides that the government must do everything to ensure, to abolish corruption and abuse of power. Okay. It is a duty which the president has. So now there are organizations set up by the same law, either the Constitution or Act of the National Assembly, with powers to fight corruption. They have power to do things on their own. Now the president, as the head of them all, has now given a guideline. It's like the DG of NTA. You have Department of Production, Services Department. I don't know the way it works here. Now the DG has said, me as the DG, in my capacity as such, I'm telling you that this is the way things should be done. And people says he's high-handedness, he's a dictator. If you want to say it is dictatorship, then you must show that what he's doing, he doesn't have the power to do as a DG. Okay. So what the president has done is legitimate. He has the power to do it under the Constitution. He has not done anything that has taken anybody's right away. Okay. The language of the instrument is the same language of the Constitution. If anybody feels that his or her right will be contravened by this executive order, it should go to the court. Okay. That is why the courts are there. So we have to continuously engage the people to change the narrative.
Okay. In the course of enforcement of this executive order, are there likely to be maybe miscarriage of justice? And if this happens, is there a way to correct them or correct it?
Okay. By the text of the executive order, it provides that all enforcement authorities, those listed in the schedule, must ensure that all assets connected with corruption are protected forthwith, using every lawful means and statutory powers, including orders of court as may be necessary. Okay. So it is not somebody just thinking that this man is corrupt and he takes over his property. Okay. That is not the...
So there's some order in it?
No. If you read it, it is not at the whims and caprice.
It's not me you're talking
to
Nigerians.
It is not at the whims and caprice of the people of the enforcement authorities. Okay. They have to still act within the law. That is why at every point in time, the law is there. It is just to streamline and direct the mechanics, like I said, of implementing the freezing of asset connected to corruption. And so that it doesn't look like we are joking, because we don't want to have a floodgate of cases. The president has put a threshold of 50 million naira. So it is only assets if the investigation or the case being investigated or the case being litigated in court involves a sum of 50 million naira or equivalent. That is when this executive order will be triggered. Okay. So it means every enforcement agency that is handling an investigation, a corruption-related investigation or litigation, must, as a matter of duty, ensure that the assets involved are protected. Okay. So the way it works before, different organizations and statutory corporations prosecute. At their discretion, they may feel there is no risk of asking for an order of court to protect this. And so it means it's not for everybody that they apply for freezing or to attach. But the president has now said the only threshold is 50 million. If the money involved or the asset involved is 50 million or equivalent, you have to ensure that the assets are protected.
Okay. I love your line of thought, and I believe it has really gone to broaden the horizon of Nigerians on this. Okay. Now, in conclusion, imagine you're leaving the studio now and you stumble on a group of people arguing. Like I said, we are here to really conscientize Nigerians on the principles of this executive order. Okay. Now you go to some circle here, hey, the thing has been set up because of 2019. It's there to checkmate politicians, it's there to victimize all that. To further clarify, what will you tell them?
Well, I won't be surprised if I hear that. There is nothing you don't hear in Nigeria. But I will tell them that it is very unfortunate to take that simplistic view of what the president is doing. Like I said earlier, the president has said from the beginning what this government will be doing if you elect me. When he was campaigning, that was the manifesto. I will face corruption, I will face the economy, and I will face security. And since the president came, he has kept faith with the promise, especially with respect to anti-corruption. Now, after 3 years, the president felt, how have we fared in these projects? And he felt, okay, there must be a paradigm shift. We need to change our strategy to ensure that this anti-corruption fight is really effective. People have been abusing the government. How many people have you convicted? What is the effect of this anti-corruption? Now the president has taken it a step further, okay, and people are giving it a slant of political... the issue of corruption in Nigeria is beyond politics. Okay. Now, it is existential for Nigeria. So beyond 2019, it is a battle that must be fought by all, okay, without giving it any coloration.
Somehow, this should outlive even this administration.
Of course.
It has no lifespan.
No, let me tell you.
Okay.
You know, the executive order does not have duration, as it were. It can, the president can issue, another order or even a press release
modifying it.
Okay. But you and I know that corruption is a serious threat to us as a people. Yeah. Unless you feel we are fine. But if we are not fine, if we still know that there are things to be done, then we have to continue to take the battle against corruption forward.
A threshold, paradigm shift a step further. Now, in just one word, if this continues successfully without hiccups, no tussle, no legal issues, say in the next 6 months, what will you say about the anti-corruption onslaught if this goes seamless?
Well, we'll have taken it to another level.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Abiodun Aikomo.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It was nice chatting with you, and I believe Nigerians enjoyed your line of thought, because the essence of this was to bring out the nitty-gritty of Executive Order 6. Contrary to what we have on the streets, we have the positives, the negatives, and we hope, like you said, that it's a threshold set by the president, paradigm shift, and taking it up. And if it goes seamless, then we would have gone further. And mind you, there could be modifications in the process, right?
Definitely.
I've been chatting with the Special Assistant to the President on Financial Crimes. Up next on Insight is the interview segment. Stay with us.